I'm Helen, therapist, author, and your host of the I Don't Think We Talk Enough About podcast, where each week I'm joined by wonderful guests who bring their warmth, wisdom, and wealth of expertise to talk about the things I just don't feel we talk enough about. And today, I'm delighted to welcome Dr. Lalitaa Suglani, an award-winning psychologist, to talk about high-functioning anxiety and to take a deep dive into her new book, which offers a 5-step guide to calming the inner panic and thriving. Lalitaa, welcome.
Welcome. Thank you. That was such a beautiful introduction.
Oh, you are so welcome. And I said it off camera as well. It's your beauty and the way you bring your own experience that genuinely made me feel safer reading your words.
Thank you so much.
Because you're someone who comes with experience of this, not just training in it.
Yeah.
And there's a big difference, isn't there?
Yeah. When you have lived experience and you go through and really sit in the shadow parts of you, and then you take clients through this journey, I think you really empathize in a very different way.
Yeah. Well, I read it in a very different way than some other books I've read. So I really wanted to say thank you for that, because this is your book. I'll show it to the camera, High Functioning Anxiety. Now, if this concept resonates even a tiny bit with you, I can't recommend it enough. It's just everything you need to help you through the process.
Yeah.
You're very real. Very real. Your examples are so real. Your case studies are so real. And they give hope as well.
Yeah.
They really
I think
do.
when I work with more and more clients, I see the same the same story that keeps coming up, the same journey that clients are going on. So in the end, I was just like, I need to put this into a book. I need to put this into a guide to help people so they're not waiting, or they don't get to a point where they hit burnout. They hit a point where they can't pick themselves back up and they've got too far. So this is more of a preventative tool to help people, just give them more awareness and helping them to understand their patterns of behaviors so they can break them and move forwards in a more authentic way.
Of course. No, and authenticity comes up a lot throughout your book. Do you want to explain, just for the listeners today, what inner child work looks like and feels like?
It's such a beautiful journey. It's something I use a lot in my therapy space. And for me, it's about going back and understanding and reconnecting back with that child self. So I feel like a lot of people that do struggle with high functioning anxiety, they've gone through childhoods where they have developed a belief system that they don't feel good enough. And often people will say, but I do feel good enough. And I'm like, okay, that's what you're saying here. But what about what's gone on in the past and what's happened there? And it's not about blaming anyone. We're not here to blame your parents. We're not here to blame your caregivers or people at school. We're here to understand what happened to your sense of self. So is there a part of you that learned, I'm not good enough? So you learned to suppress what you needed, learned to become invisible, learned to not be a burden, learned to not take up space. And instead you showed up being what you thought you needed to be for everyone else. And that's exactly my journey and what I did. And no one told me I had to be like that. That's what I learned, because that's how I learned to receive. And I learned that I needed to earn love. So in order to earn love, I had to be a certain way. And then I continued that pattern, which started playing out in my adult relationships as well, until I started to become more aware of them. And only as an adult, we're becoming more aware and touching base with my child beliefs and my core beliefs that come and stem from your inner child, was I able then to make these changes as an adult. And it's just, you show up very differently because you're truly in your power. You take up space without feeling guilt, without feeling shame.
Take up space. I love it. Yes.
It's so beautiful to do.
Do you want to talk about or define what high function? I know you've touched on it, but let's get a definition down for people that are listening. I know it's going to resonate for so many, but what is high functioning anxiety? And then maybe looking at how it differs to anxiety, because you mentioned that in the book.
Yeah. So high functioning anxiety to me is when you're showing up in one way where you look so presentable, you look almost perfect, and you look like you've got everything together. But in the inside, you are catastrophizing, you're overthinking, you're not really showing up as your authentic, your true self. So I usually give the image of the swan, because that really helps people to understand it and they're like, that makes sense. And as soon as people hear that, they're like, that is me. I've been doing that for so long. But the impact of you showing up in that way is burnout, it's stress, it's anxiety, it's loneliness. And these are the things that are detriment to our mental and our physical well-being. I know that they've done a study, and they've proven that having 15 cigarettes in a day is like the feeling of loneliness. So it's a real impact that it has on your physical well-being as well, that we really need to take care of ourselves. But often people don't even realize they have high functioning anxiety because they're high functioning. So they're still able to do the work, they're still showing up, and the anxiety is fueling them to be productive. Whereas with anxiety itself, and we talk about GAD, generalized anxiety disorder, that's more of like it debilitates you, it stops you from doing certain things, you're not able to go out, you're not able to do this. Right. Whereas with high functioning anxiety, you're doing things, so it looks like you've got things together, and you will never think, I don't have anxiety. Because often people will say that, they'll say, I don't have anxiety though. And when you sit down, you realize that they've just disconnected from their body. They're not feeling into things. So they're intellectualizing everything. They get everything, but they don't understand that this disconnect is going on within them.
But you very clearly talk about these 7 symptoms, and I love them, because I thought there was something to really hold on to.
Yeah.
And you bring some beautiful examples with them as well. Do you want to go through?
Yeah, definitely.
How it really manifests?
Yeah. So let's think like day to day. So you wake up in the morning and you might think, oh God, I need to rush to work today because I need to get there for 7 o'clock because I've got this meeting that I need to do. So I'm over preparing. And it might not even be a meeting that you're in charge of, but you've been given the responsibility. So you've become very over responsible because you don't want to say no to someone, because you feel guilty, you feel bad if you do. So you end up taking on all this stuff. You're very hyper independent, so you don't want to trust other people, and because you feel like they don't get things done in the way that you do, so you don't want to sort of trust them with it. You might find yourself just catastrophizing, like thinking about all the what if this happens or what if this happens, and thinking about all these narratives, which then leaves you feeling quite exhausted, quite tired. You anticipate anxiety as well, so you're already thinking of all these possibilities that can happen in the rest of the day. Like, what if I'm doing this presentation and I stutter? What if I am doing this presentation and I forget what I'm going to say? Or what if people don't turn up? So you're thinking about all these what if scenarios and you're anticipating what's going to happen. But by you doing that, you're thinking and you're imagining these stories in your head, but your body doesn't know the difference between your imagination and what's going on here and right now. So you're now feeling anxious for a thing that you've just imagined in your head. And then you're thinking already now, okay, when I get there, it's going to be a bad thing, because your body now has reacted and associated presentation is going to bring up anxiety, something bad's going to happen. So you're waiting for something bad to happen. And that can feel exhausting because you're constantly trying to read the room. You're sensitive to other people's emotions. You may notice a subtle change in someone who's walked in, and you will then personalize it and think, I've done something to that person, or why they're not okay, or hey, how are you? Are you okay? Like, is everything? And you're trying to overcompensate, but it might have nothing to do with you. So you're just feeling then constantly on edge, trying to make sure everything's all okay because you want to feel like you're in control. But what are you really in control of? It's how you're feeling and managing your own emotions. But because you haven't learned to live from within, you've learned to live externally. Because if we go back to the root of high functioning anxiety, it goes back to our inner child. And it goes back to how we learn to associate or be in the world. So you may have learned that your attachment figures were inconsistent, for example. So you learn, okay, because they're inconsistent, I now need to show up in a very certain way where I'm in control. I don't show my emotions because there's no one here to look after me. So I have to just keep presenting in this way. So you do that same pattern as an adult where you're going into this meeting, but you're like, I can't trust anyone else to do this. I need to do it myself. I don't know how my manager's going to come in. I don't know how other people are going to come in, but I will just make sure that I keep giving and giving and giving, which is what you would have done as a child. And that's why you've learned to show up in this way.
Yeah, I mean, it's such a brilliant example, isn't it? And when you talked about that taking on responsibility of how someone else feels. So you're taking on responsibility for so many things outside of the locus of your control.
Often people, if you end up people pleasing and aiming to like try and please people all the time, what you end up doing is you disconnect from what you really want. So often people will come into therapy and will say, I don't know who I am. I don't know who I am. I don't know what I like. I don't know what my hobbies, my interests are, because I've just gone along with what everyone else has wanted. And it can bring up a deep sadness within them where they're just like, I don't know who I am. And it's like helping people to almost like date themselves again and relearn who they are. And that's why, like, even in the book, it's split between learning and unlearning, where people really understand more about, hang on, what is it that I'm unlearning, these patterns of behavior, but then how do I then relearn? Because I think that's where people get stuck and confused and overwhelmed because they feel like, but I don't know who I am. It's like, that's okay. It's okay not to know who you are.
Yeah, we'll come to that. Definitely, I want to go through your whole 5-step plan because it's so helpful. And I wanted to read a little bit. It's only a short paragraph.
Go for it.
Because it really resonated. And it actually made me feel a bit tearful, which meant that it obviously touched something for me. I've had a lot of therapy too, as psychotherapists too. We often find ourselves caught in the trap of feeling inadequate or not measuring up to certain standards. However, the truth is that we are inherently good enough. Just as we are, our worthiness doesn't depend on external achievements, validations, or comparison to others. We possess unique qualities, I love that bit, strengths and gifts that make us valuable and worthy of love and acceptance. I want everyone to have that as their screensaver. It's on their fridge or...
Isn't it beautiful? It's beautiful. When you've just shared that, like the thing that comes up to me is the gifts. We all have such a beautiful gift, but we're so afraid to put it on the table and show everyone just in case they look at it, they laugh, they criticize, they judge. And that's the thing that we're avoiding. But then we stop ourselves from really showing up and living our life to like the extent that we can to be really limitless in so many ways and to meet our full potential, because we're afraid of others. And that's why we have to sit with the shadow part of us, sit with the fear. And it's like, what's living underneath the fear? Like, what's the worst that's going to happen if someone sees my gift and they do laugh? How can I then stand up to that? How can I really own that, yeah, this is my gift and this is who I am? But it takes practice, doesn't it? Well, as I was writing the book, what came up to me was I wrote down the 5 steps, but then I realized actually it's split into 2 parts. So there's a first part which is about the unlearning, and the second bit is all about the learning. So steps 1 and 2, you have to unlearn. You have to go back in the past. You have to work on your inner child, and you have to go deep really to just understand what's gone on in the past to then move forwards. Because what people tend to do is they keep put a plaster on it and it's like, yeah, I'm fine. Let me just keep moving forward. That's not going to work. We need to take the plaster off, look underneath, clear the wound, and then move forward. That doesn't mean the wound is going to go. It might mean that you have a scar there, but that's the beauty of who you are and the gift that you carry through life.
Yeah. I've got some more questions.
Yes, go for it.
I've got some questions from my Instagram community who are just wonderful and so engaged with the podcast. So grateful. Every time I talk about anxiety, I get thousands of questions come in. So I've pulled out just a few.
Yep.
Oh, this was interesting because it links. I thought it was a great question and links into what we've been talking about. Any tips on identifying my behaviour as anxiety rather than my authentic self?
That's really interesting because people will say, I don't know if this is my intuition or I don't know if this is my fear. Like I can't tell the difference. And what I would say to you is sit down, write it out how you're feeling, what's going on, your thoughts, your feelings. Don't rush into it, because what you're doing is you're really trying to understand, is this like my fear speaking or is this my authentic self? And there's a real confusion there between, well, I don't know which one's which, but remember, you're getting to know yourself. So what I would always say is like write it down, and also just taking time to really sit with both parts, the fear side, and it's like, okay, what's living underneath the fear here? So if, for example, someone is saying, oh, but I'm going to say no to this person. Is that fear or is that your authentic self? So sit with, okay, why am I saying no to this person? And from there, you'll start to go deeper and deeper into the why of why you're doing what you're doing, which will then help you to get to the root of, is it fear or is it my authentic self?
So it's that real sitting with, isn't it?
And what's living underneath. Because sometimes I think we see things at the surface, but there's always things underneath that are going on. And it's trying to make sense of, okay, is the fear trying to stop me from doing something because it's trying to keep me safe? Or is this my authentic self saying, no, say no, because this isn't something that you have capacity for at the minute?
Tips to drop back into your body and be present.
we're so good at intellectualizing everything and staying, and it's like, yeah, I get what I'm doing, I get it all, and it's like, yeah, but are we feeling it?
I know that complete disconnect between mind and body, it's there, isn't it?
Yeah, definitely. So I know for me, the biggest thing that worked for me is yoga, and it's why I'm trained as a yoga teacher, because I just felt like coming back into your body and really feeling into things that are going on is so important. But because we're in this space of do, when we're this headless chicken, we don't get the space to come back into our body. So I would say every morning when you're waking up, having like regular check-ins in the day. So it might just be like every couple of hours, you have your alarm or have a little notification on your phone that goes off. And it's just like, stop, breathe, and just tune in. And even if we're doing breath work, you have one hand on your abdomen here and one on your chest, and just taking deep breaths into your body, and then breathing out, just inhaling, exhaling, you're coming into your body. And people will say, well, I don't feel emotions in my body, I only feel them in my head. Everyone feels emotions differently. So there's no right or wrong. You're just learning more about yourself and understanding how you show up. So when you're noticing that you're in this do stage, what you're trying to do is learn to be in the space that you're in. So by doing that, grounding exercises are really good. Yoga, doing other things as well, like just breath work, or even just like sitting with a cup of tea, but connecting with your senses when you're doing it.
What type of job would be ideal for someone who has high functioning anxiety? Because we have to remember that these questions are coming from people who maybe haven't done any self-awareness around anxiety. Obviously, you and me, we know, we work with it every day. So I thought that was a good question.
It's a good question. And my mind has instantly gone to, is this the high functioning anxiety where you don't know you have high functioning anxiety? So you're in a job, because a lot of people will end up going into a job that's very busy, very hectic, very chaotic, but they love it. They thrive off it because it keeps them avoidant from themselves. So they don't have to stop. They don't have to think about themselves. They just go for others until they get to a point where they feel tired, they feel burnt out. And that's when they realize, hang on, this isn't what I want to do, but I'm doing all of this. I'm feeling stressed out. I'm feeling anxious because I'm doing this job that's very high pressured, very high achieving. And often entrepreneurs, professionals, they're all high functioning, anxious people, but they don't realize that. So it's only when you start healing and start really developing more and understanding why is it that I show up in this way, and then you realize that's not how I want to live life. I want to live life more mindful, and how do I then develop a lifestyle where it's connected to my purpose? And sometimes we develop that purpose from going back to our wound and looking at our wound to then rediscover, hang on, what do I actually want from life? What do I want to do? So it takes you down that real deep, like maybe spiritual path where you're wanting to show up in a way that is purposeful to you and that you're making that difference that you want to make. But you don't get there until you've done that inner work. So when you're initially with high functioning anxiety, you can end up in a job where it's go. Yeah. But through the journey of in discovering your anxiety, you then develop, hang on, what is it that I actually want to do in life? And then you get to understand what fulfills you, what gives you that purpose and that joy that you want from life.
I love that. And that will look different for everyone with high functioning anxiety. Yeah. Different for everyone. Which leads me to, what does it mean to you to choose you?
Oh, I love this question. What does it mean? It really means to give myself space.
Yes.
Done it again. It's getting bigger and bigger.
I love it.
I honestly feel like choosing me is about me giving myself space. It's giving myself space to breathe, to reflect, to honor, like what is it that's right for me, and really sitting with what's going on. But because I never used to do that, and now I do that all the time. I'm like, what's this? What's going on? And even like we said, going into certain yoga postures and really sitting in and tuning into what is it that I feel like, and learning to understand what you need so you can give yourself that. It's just beautiful.
Oh, it's a beautiful answer. That was gorgeous.
Thank you. I appreciate that.
Lalitaa, it's been so gorgeous to have
you.
Where's
the
here.
Time gone?
I can't believe how quickly it's gone. I could talk for hours more, so I can't thank you enough.
Thank you.
Thank you. And thank you to all of you for listening and watching, and I hope you enjoyed. And if you did, it would mean the world to me if you could review and follow the podcast. Your support means so much to me, so thank you.